So the Emir of Qatar has arrived in India, of course, and is being received at Rashtrapati Bhavan by the President of India, Draupadi Murmu, and of course by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, this is an important visit, the second visit by the Emir of Qatar to India at a time when, of course, the India-Qatar relationship has gone through, for lack of a better word, an interesting phase over the last couple of years. So. Sheikh Tamim Al Thani has come to India. What is he here to discuss? What exactly are the two leaders going to be talking about? We wanted to sit down with you and just have a chat about what the two leaders are going to be talking about. Before, of course, I talk about that, a little bit of background. India and Qatar have had a diplomatic relationship for the last 50 years, since 1973, really, of course, and a lot of that relationship has been built on the back of energy exports, also on the back of the fact that there is a very large Indian expatriate community that lives and works in Qatar in the hundreds of thousands, which makes an important contribution to Qatar's economy. Historically, that has been really the foundation of the relationship between India and Qatar. And what we've had, of course, is in the last couple of years, because I said an interesting phase in the India-Qatar relationship because of a major controversy that broke out just a little while ago, that was successfully resolved diplomatically, but nonetheless was quite an issue. Was the issue of 8 Indian naval veterans who were arrested in Qatar. They were working for a consultancy company on charges that were unspecified. There was a lot of reporting at the time about why these men had been arrested, these 8 naval veterans, and some of the reporting, of course, suggested that they were suspected of being spies, of passing on military secrets because they were working very closely with Qatar's military. They were sentenced to death, in fact, but then some very quick diplomatic intervention took place. There were meetings between the Prime Minister as well as the Emir of Qatar, as well as a very, very high stakes diplomacy that took place. The Vice President of India went to Qatar, and also, of course, ostensibly for the World Cup, but it was also thought to also be related to this issue of what is happening to these naval veterans. So absolutely a very, very key issue that came up in the bilateral relationship, but was then successfully resolved, and these naval veterans were sent back to India. And of course, there is still one Indian naval veteran who is in Qatar. That conversation is likely to happen, but that was the background really to the relationship, a controversy that could have been quite severe, but was resolved by some diplomatic conversations between the two sides. And of course, because of that, Qatar may have popped up in the headlines, and you may remember having heard something about Qatar more broadly in the relationship. But why exactly, beyond just this more recent controversy, does Qatar matter? Well, like I said, we've had a relationship with Qatar for the last 50 years. It's important for really several key reasons. The first has to be energy. Qatar is really India's largest supplier of liquefied natural gas. As India's economy has grown, it has become necessary for India to import LNG and gas from foreign countries. Qatar is really India's top supplier, supplies around 60 to 70% of India's supply of LNG. We also have, over the last couple of years, a series of deals signed between Indian companies as well as Qatari companies for long-term supplies of natural gas. At this point in time, there was a deal signed between Petronet LNG and Qatar Energy that would supply around 7.5 million tons of LNG per year between 2028 and 2048. So a long-term 20-year contract to supply LNG to India. Very important contract, given how much of these imports come from of India's gas needs come from Qatar. So that is an absolutely important relationship that counts in the billions of dollars, and is really the major chunk of the India-Qatar economic relationship, which hovers at around in between 15 to 20 billion dollars. Really, its growth has been powered by that energy relationship between India and Qatar. So when you think about Qatar, one thing I would love for you to think about is that when it comes to liquefied natural gas, it is really one of the key suppliers of this crucial source of energy for the Indian economy. So that's the energy piece of the equation. There is, of course, the geopolitics and strategy piece of the equation, which is that Qatar happens to be a very, very important player in the Middle East, very much punches above its weight in key cases. It has played an important negotiating role in a number of conflicts, whether you're looking at the conflict in Afghanistan or the negotiations between Israel and Hamas when it comes to ending the conflict in West Asia at this point in time. All of those discussions have had something very crucially to do with Qatar and have been hosted by Qatar, and so it has become, in many ways, a key hosting ground for a lot of the key diplomatic conversations in the Middle East to play out. That is the role that it has carved for itself in the last couple of years. It, of course, ran into a lot of trouble with Saudi Arabia and a number of other countries a couple of years ago because of its foreign policy. So Qatar is not an entirely uncontroversial player when it comes to international geopolitics, but nonetheless it has become a player in West Asia, and India is engaging with it for those reasons. So that is also something that I would offer you to think about, that Qatar does punch above its weight when it comes to foreign policy. There's also, of course, the fact that the Indian expatriate community contributes a substantial chunk of Qatar's total population. Remember, as I said, hundreds of thousands of Indians reside in Qatar, contribute to its economy, as they do to the economies of a number of countries in the Gulf particularly. Remember, millions of Indians live in the Gulf and work there, and therefore India's relationship with Qatar, with a number of these countries, oftentimes also has this very, very key component of Indian expatriate communities living and working there, which is extremely key. Also, there is a defense relationship. India takes part in a number of exercises that Qatar hosts. For example, Doha in particular hosts a number of key military exercises that India attends, that India has been a part of in the past. There is, of course, also training, joint exercises, a number of key defense activities that the two countries will have to take on. Of course, remember that Qatar is, again, as West Asian nation. Also, India does have a serious policy when it comes to working more closely militarily with a number of countries in that part of the world. Remember that it is absolutely geopolitically crucial for India to ensure the safety and security of the waterways in the Western Indian Ocean, because a lot of India's trade comes from those waterways, and working very closely with countries in the region that have a shared interest is also important. So, like I said, there are different buckets to, or if you want to think about it, different topics that the two countries will be talking about. Energy, of course, like I said, liquefied natural gas. Defense, India has a key interest in the Western Indian Ocean. Qatar also has a key interest, and the two countries have cooperated, whether it's defense exercises, training, and so on and so forth. There's the expatriate community, which is really around, by some estimates, around 20 to 25% of Qatar's population is the Indian expatriate community. And of course, you also have some other Qatar's key role as a geopolitical player in West Asia. All of this plays a role in why the Emir of Qatar is here in India. Remember, he came earlier in 2015. This is not the first time that India has seen a visit by the Emir of Qatar, but certainly an important visit. Also, as I was saying, coming off the back, and I don't think that this point should be missed, of this controversy that was resolved successfully just a year or so ago about Indian naval veterans being arrested in Qatar and being sentenced to death for on the charges of espionage. It was a high-level conversation, including between the Prime Minister and the Emir of Qatar, to diffuse the situation and to make sure those naval veterans were sent back. Again, there is still one naval veteran who is in Qatar, and the repatriation or the return of that naval veteran will also, of course, be likely a part of the conversation between India and Qatar. But we know that the two leaders are set to meet today, Prime Minister Modi and the Emir of Qatar. We're also going to see the Ministry of External Affairs give us some more information on what exactly was discussed between these two leaders, and we will bring you those updates as they come up. But thank you so much for joining us for this quick chat on India Today Global about what exactly was discussed what exactly will be discussed, between the ruler of Qatar and India's Prime Minister in their meetings today.